Gather round, friends, fellow adventurers, young and old, for I am going to tell you the story. This is a tragic story of tragic timing, a story made for an often ignored and maligned audience. This is a story about realizing who you should become and remembering who you were. This is the tragic story of Onward. Hey everybody, it's your boy Nerdicane. I am not going to talk like that the whole time. That would probably annoy me. I just got done watching Onward, and what a really, really good movie this is. And it's really tragic. It's what has happened to this. So this movie came out, I think it was February 21st. That's when it hit box office. It had a really bad box office weekend. It only did about 40 million, but that led the box office for that weekend because of the tragic timing. The coronavirus was just getting ramped up, and it was just making its way over to North America, and it had been in Europe for a little while. So that really spoiled what was going to be the release of a very, very good movie. Now this is okay, I'll set it up. This is it's about a world. It's about a fantasy world, but technology was introduced. And as it says, the world used to be full of magic and adventure and wonder. And because of technology was so much easier, and it was, the light switch, it was so much easier and so much more readily available that it sort of overwhelmed magic, because magic you had to learn, you had to concentrate, you had to focus on it. And it was either, focus on casting a light spell to light your house or flip a light switch to light your house. So the world became their fantasy world with, with goblins and centaurs and cyclops and elves, had become very much like our world with, just mundane, boring malaise that had gone over it. It follows the story of two brothers, Ian and Barley. Now, Ian and Barley lost their father a long time ago due to a sickness, and he's, Barley's the older of the two. He remembers his father in just little clips and just a few memories of him. Ian was born after his father had passed away. This is the part where you don't see a whole lot of these movies focused on men, young men, boys, fathers. A lot of these movies are based on sisters and daughters and mothers, and Disney's has a long history of having a focus of the mother in the story, and it's really neat to see. For me as a new father and about to be a father again, is I really like to see that there's a story made for boys, for them, coming of age or realizing what they should be, who they're going to become, and even parts of this were really good because people remembered who they were. It's for Ian. He's 16 and he's coming of age, and he's learning to drive, and he's not very confident as a lot of 16-year-old boys are. He sees his father as this very confident person from the memories that other people tell him, and he sort of sees his brother as this overconfident kind of oaf, and he's struggling to do all these things, could socialize and learn to drive and things like that. So through the story, he sort of realizes, he sort of gains that confidence because he's actually getting out of his comfort zone. That's what he was always afraid to get out of his comfort zone. So he starts getting out of his comfort zone and doing magic, which the world had completely forgotten about. It thought it didn't exist. Barley is sort of a dreamer. He's sort of he's in love with the history of that world, and the history of that world is what we would consider Dungeons and Dragons. So through this sort of tabletop role-playing game in their world, to them it's historic. To them it's a historically accurate game, reenactment. To us it's a game, but because their world was magical, it's a historic game to them, which I found very funny. It is a very, very interesting plot device. So Barley's engrossed in it, and he knows the magic. He knows there used to be magic, but he doesn't have the gift. He's not magical. So we get the situation. This is the whole crux of it. They're trying to see. It's Ian's 16th birthday. He gets a present from his father, a wizard staff. Now the wizard staff comes with a spell, and the spell would bring their father back for one day to see his boys, see how they grew up. The problem is he didn't put enough materials in the spell, which is very classic. So the spell is only half done. So they have 24 hours to get the other piece for the spell that they need to bring their father back. That's the quest. That's the quest to go on, which things ensue. There's a difference between Ian, who wants to play it safe all the time, and Barley, who wants to go on the path of peril because he knows it from his game. That's where the interest comes from. That's where the excitement comes from. That's where the actual adventure is. It's not about, they have a battle between going on the highway to a location and going on the surface roads, the path of peril. They're sort of forced onto the path of peril, and you see later on in the movie, if they had gone the safe way, they would never have seen the actual clue to get the MacGuffin that they were after. Along the way, you see in this world that there's so many different things, like the mother's new boyfriend. He's a centaur. There's a moment where Barley says, you guys used to run 70 miles an hour, and the centaur just kind of like doesn't even think about it. He's like, don't need to run. I got a car. And you see so much in the world that they've forgotten who they are. While Ian is trying to figure out who he is, much of the world has forgotten who they are, especially with the Manticore. The Manticore is probably one of my favorite characters in this, because the Manticore was where all the adventurers went to get their quests. The Manticore knew where everything was in the world and would give out these quests and say, oh, I'm looking for this. Oh, you have to go here. She would send people on their way from her tavern. Well, her tavern had changed. Her tavern became sort of like a Chuck E. Cheese. And she had forgotten who she was, and there's moments where she sort of breaks out of that. And she's the one who really starts to break out of that first. And she's like, it's a really funny scene when she does that in her restaurant. You got to see it. I'm not going to spoil it. You got to see it. But you see the world as they go on their travels. Barley's encounter with the pixies. He talks about them, how they used to fly. They didn't need motorcycles. They're a motorcycle gang, by the way. They didn't need motorcycles. They used to fly. And the pixies take it the wrong way. They say, are you saying I'm lazy? And a whole chase ensues with that. And the end of that, the pixies realize, through the end of the chase, the pixies realize, oh, my wings do work. So you start to see, as Ian goes on his journey to discover who he is, you see along the way parts that they touch on this journey, realizing who they used to be, who they're supposed to be. So I think that's really the beauty of this movie, is both one young man realizing who he's, trying to get to who he wants to be. Meanwhile, the world is coming the other way to him, to something more magical, like realizing, oh, we used to fly. We used to do this. I'm a centaur. I used to be able to run 70 miles an hour. Even with Ian learning to use magic, Barley knows the magic because he plays the game. So he's sort of Ian's guide in all this, and Ian doesn't really believe. But as he goes along and he starts casting these low-level spells, he starts to believe, and he starts to believe not just in the magic, but he starts to believe in himself, which is a really beautiful thing in the story. So the crux, and it was really good. This is how you subvert expectations. They talk about Rian Johnson, how he's just absolutely mean-spirited, quote-unquote, subverting expectations of The Last Jedi. This is how you do it. Everything in this movie, everything leading up to this movie, led me to believe that this was going to be a father-son story. When you get to the end of the story, you realize it's something different. I'm not going to spoil that as well. I want you to watch it. It's on Disney+. It's easy. It's easy to go watch this. You sort of realize that it's not exactly a father-son story, and the realization comes on. You're like, oh, it was funny because I watched it and I'm like, this is how I was like, this is how you subvert expectations. I was expecting one thing and I got another thing. You didn't have to do it by disappointing me. You just had to do it by showing me, yeah, what you thought was this is actually this. And that's a real beauty of this movie. And so yes, 2 thumbs up. I do highly recommend this. The tragic part is when it came out. like I said before, when it came out, it was the beginning of the coronavirus. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. We weren't really sure the severity of it. It caused it to have a very paltry box office take that first weekend. Granted, it was number one, but it was a very, very low number one. It's probably the lowest number one for an opening in a very, very long time. So soon after that, they realized, okay, we're gonna have to cut this short, and they put it on digital. And it had a pretty good response on digital as well. But in the past, I think it was the past week and a half, I finally just got around to watching it. It's been on Disney Plus probably for about a week and a half. I have a toddler. I don't get to watch movies the way I used to. Before I could just put it in, or I could tell the wife, hey, let's go to the movies and we'll watch this. But you realize when you have a toddler, you don't get to do that anymore. Your time is not really your time anymore. So finally it made it to Disney Plus, and just in bits and pieces, I've watched it over the last couple days, because that's how I have to do things now. But there's hope. The director, as I put a quote from him on the screen before, the director's handling it like a professional. He says, yes, we had a slow weekend. This is, putting it on digital and then putting on Disney Plus, that was the right thing to do for people to see it. Everybody involved in this production is handling it they're handling the quote unquote failure of the box office. Notice I said the failure of the box office. As a movie, it's really, really good as a movie. I really like it as a movie. As a box office, as a moneymaker, which is what Disney wanted it to be, yes, it's a failure. It didn't make much money. Now, hopefully it will draw people. It's really good fodder, really good bait for Disney Plus. Hopefully people will get Disney Plus to see Onward, to see the other things on it, because it's a really good movie, and everybody involved in it is handling this like a professional. They're not pointing fingers. They're not getting angry at the audience for not going to see it. They're saying, yeah, we realize what's going on. We made the right decisions with putting it here, putting it there. So that's how we're going to go forward. And that, I really applaud them for that. That was really good. Apparently, I just saw something, and I'll do a screenshot. Apparently, there's going to be a sequel. There's going to be not an animated, not a movie. There's going to be a graphic novel sequel, a prequel, actually, about the adventures of the Manticore. I think that's really great. That's a graphic novel, a comic book that I'm really looking forward to, because as when you watch the movie, and I do suggest you watch the movie, it's a very good movie. The Manticore is one of my favorite characters, because she's sort of the chaotic neutral, because they go to a pawn shop to get her sword. They need to get the sword to stop the curse. I'm just giving bits and pieces of what's in the movie. To getting the sword, hang on, I'm listening for my toddler in the next room, what he's doing. To get the sword, they go to a pawn shop, and when the pawn shop owner realizes that it's something valuable and rare, the price jacks up. So the way they get around that is beautiful, and I really like the Manticore, and I hope to see more of her. I'm looking forward to that as well. But that's all I got for this one. My kid is calling me, and I got to go take care of what he needs, okay? You guys have a good day. Go watch the movie. Bye.